I'm Josh Cooperman, and this is Convo by Design with another very special episode, part of a new series of the show, and something that, gosh, I've been wanting to do this for a really long time, but I specifically wanted, as the years went on, I wanted to get through year 10 before I rolled this out. We're through year 10, and do you know that in 11 years of Convo by Design, I've published over 450 episodes, spoken with over 600 creatives, produced over 6 panel conversations for design events across the country. From all of these amazing conversations with the world's greatest creative talent, I wanted to start enshrining some of these individuals into what I'm calling the Convo by Design icon registry. A hall of fame, if you will. I don't do contests, and I most certainly don't do lists. Lists are, to me, they're gimmicky, designed to capture clicks. They're clickbait, pure and simple. And you can't tell me that a list of 50, 75, or 100 designers and architects are the absolute best at what they do without providing context. Lists are created in the hopes that those who are being listed will promote the accolades, and that attention will be driven back to the author of the list. And contests where creatives have to reach out to their base to get them to vote for them, I'm not a fan of that. Anyway, others do it. It's totally cool. But I wanted to do something special to start celebrating the absolute best in the business. And that's what we're doing here with the Icon Registry. So now here's the criteria. Each inductee has been a guest on Convo by Design. They have a body of work that is exceptional in their various disciplines, and there is no justification required for their world-class status, full stop. They give back to the industry. They are innovators, givers, and make our industry better than they found it. This project is called the Convo by Design Icon Registry. And because that is what this is, tantamount to a Hall of Fame, a Ring of Honor, but more, what is an icon? Described as an icon, a person or thing regarded as a representative symbol or as worthy of veneration. A registry is a well-curated list. You can consider this a venerable who's who in our industry with gifts to offer and a willingness to share. Pablo Picasso is widely credited for saying, quote, "The meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away," end quote. Now, I'm not suggesting that those enshrined in the Icon Registry have all just been giving away their gifts. These are professionals of the highest order, and part of being a professional is knowing your worth, understanding your value. And each of these individuals have appeared on Convo by Design to discuss that, shared what they know for the betterment of others, and I am deeply appreciative for that. This is the most authentic way that I could think of expressing my gratitude for that. As deeply appreciative as I am for their sharing, I am equally grateful for you taking the time to share a few moments, an hour out of your busy schedule each week to listen to the show. And again, the most authentic way that I can express that gratitude is to give you an opportunity to hear them again. So every month, the last Thursday of the month, unless it's a holiday week, which in case I'll publish that, a week sooner, I'll share these inductees with you. So this month, we are inducting Cara Woodhouse. This creative is, to me, an extraordinary example of what it means to be a modern designer. Not as in her aesthetic or style is purely modern, but instead her understanding of the design universe and being universally adroit at presenting traditional materials in new ways, expertly navigating space gracefully, seemingly, and yet sparking emotion in, again, unique and different ways. Cara Woodhouse is crafty, creative, and her work begins and ends with a full understanding of what she's working with in terms of space, desires, needs, and materiality. Woodhouse isn't a Joanna come lately. She is a design star. She isn't a reality TV star designer. She's paid her dues. I've not just covered her professionally for the podcast, but I have been the beneficiary of her work. When I was the general manager and program director for Playboy Radio, I spent time in the Beverly Hills Playboy offices that she designed. Her work is imaginative. It's exciting. It makes the brain pop and wiggle. Woodhouse is a curator of color, shape, and space, mixing and blending, all to please the senses and make you wonder, what if? This conversation is from an episode of the showroom. It was sometime mid-pandemic, so don't ask me exactly when, because I don't remember. But what if indeed? This is my conversation with Cara Woodhouse, who is the next to be installed in the Convo By Design icon registry. She's amazing, and this is her story.
I love doing the showroom. We've been doing this particular project now. I absolutely love it. It gives us a chance to have really in-depth interviews with absolutely amazing creatives. Joining us today is Cara Woodhouse. And Cara, I'm so thrilled that you're here. And here's what I wanted to do. We're going to get into our chat a little bit. We're going to talk about some of your projects. If anyone has questions that you want to ask, please go down to the chat feature at the bottom and type in your questions. And Teresa will be monitoring them and jump in with them as appropriate and as we get to them. So if you like the conversation, and I hope that you do, it will be published to Convo by Design, and you can watch the video on Walker Zanger's YouTube channel. So with that, Cara, welcome to the showroom.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
I am too. I'm happy you're here as well, and I'm thrilled that you could join us today. I wanted to say, the first thing I wanted to ask you about, because we were talking a little bit before we hit the little red button, and with the way that the business has changed and not being able to really see how the business would change while we were in the midst of this work from home scenario. And now that things are starting to open up, talk to me about a couple of things. How as a firm, you're addressing all these changes, how you're working with clients differently now than maybe you did before. And that idea, that reality now that you have to tell people, no, you don't have time to work on their projects. How are you handling all of this?
So my business, like we were talking earlier, so I'm usually busy. I'm lucky and fortunate and blessed that I'm, at the point in my career where I'm busy all the time. But now with everybody working from home and relocating and all of that, business in this field is booming, next level. It made me a few things, realize how, my employees and myself can work from home and make it work. And I think that is also going to change moving forward, where my employees, I want everybody to enjoy what they're doing and be there and, present and function at their best capacity always. And now, not having a commute and working from home, it's a really nice way of life, enjoying, time being at home and being productive and being home. That's definitely a big part of it. So, I'm only having employees, some come in full time because that's what they choose and they prefer it. But others, I'm giving the option to come into the office 2 to 3 days a week. And it's been working phenomenally for us. And another thing of being so busy and having to say no to so many projects coming in, it's so hard. It's like you're busy and you almost want to take on everything. But I have a boutique firm. I want it to be at a certain scale. I've had a larger firm in the past, and this is what feels right for me, and I feel balanced where I am. So I have to turn jobs away. I have to say no. And it's hard. It's hard to do that, but that is part of what's happening right now because everybody is redesigning, buying homes, building homes, renovating homes. It's just, it's amazing and unbelievable what's happened.
By the same token, I'm curious your take on reselects, the dreaded reselect, availability of product, using new materials and resources, and finding new materials, considering that there haven't been any live events over the past year, so finding new product has been a challenge, and then the need to reselect because certain things are not available right now. Has that been a challenge for you, and if so, how are you addressing that?
So I agree with that in some ways, and I also don't agree with that in some ways. As far as selecting products, I feel like over this period of time, all these creative people and studios, have had the time now to kind of redevelop things and produce and design new products that are coming out that I've seen, which, people are emerging, and even new businesses, like people had time, like this is what their passion was and they got it off the ground and now they're, doing so well. But on a flip side, on the building side and lead times and things like that. So everyone knows now price has gone up for materials, wood, metal, copper, all these things. I just actually bought a home and relocated during COVID. And luckily I just kind of missed this where, there were longer lead times. I just missed it. I was so lucky. But, projects that I'm working on, you can't get certain things and people have to wait longer. And, it just, people have to deal with that. And prices are going up. I've heard stories of people, even in my neighborhood, who were building homes from the ground up and the price of wood went up triple and they were building, $3 million homes that have now gone up significantly and they can't even afford to follow through with these projects and have to sell these properties. So, and there have been lead times, but I feel like, we've always had kind of lead times in this industry. They're just, tacked on time now.
Yeah. And it's fascinating too. The commodity side of the business is something that I don't think the design industry is necessarily used to.
Right.
And I feel like what we've learned, pandemic aside, but just from the specifying and ordering product is really fascinating. But this kind of started before, because 2016, 2017, when the tariffs started, product coming in from Asia and Canada and Mexico, and all of a sudden the prices started going up and it was really hard to budget, because it was fluctuating. And with tariffs, things were, there was a 50-75% increase in product price almost overnight. It was really hard to manage this. And I feel like many designers weren't really equipped from that business perspective, because, and this is something I wanted to ask you about, going back to when you started in the business.
Yeah.
Your approach to starting in the business, because if you ask 10 designers how they got started, you'll get 10 different origin stories. You'll get 10 different business models. You'll get 10 different business plans and marketing plans, and everything is just so, everyone's got such a different way of doing it. There is no real uniform process to starting this. So I'm curious, how did you get started in the business? How did you decide that this is what you wanted to do? And when you decided to hang your shingle, how did you approach it?
So I could tell you this, I was the person that said I would never, ever want an interior design firm. And here we are 20 something years later, having multiple firms. But I was really fortunate in the beginning of my career. I worked for some, top-notch design firms, AD top 100, and got some great experience. I really only worked prior to starting my own company for I want to say 3 years, almost 4 years. And I actually was approached from by a friend of a friend who bought a property, a waterfront property in Miami Beach, in South Beach. And they wanted to hire me to do a full gut renovation and design of this house with a really healthy budget. And I couldn't say no. And I'm the type of person that I kind of just roll with things and I figure it out as I go along. And I'm like, all right, I knew really nothing, business side of this really, but figured it out. And that's kind of how my business got started. And I was smart enough to pull a business partner in, someone that I worked with at one of my older firms, who all she wanted to do was have her own firm. And so I made her leave her job. I'm like, you're my partner. We're going to Miami. This is going to be fun. And basically then word got out, and the job that we left, we had a great relationship with the owner, and she would feed us these jobs. She was working on, 10, $15 million decorating budget. So her like $1.5 to $2 million decorating budgets, like she didn't want that. So we were like, that's amazing. We're starting out. This is incredible. So we were really fortunate to get these amazing projects, and made many mistakes along the way and kind of figured things out. And that's how we got started. And we grew really, really fast. We were hungry for it. We wanted to succeed. And that was my first design firm. And that was back in 2004.
Putting you on the spot for a second, if you had to go back and think about some of the biggest mistakes that you made.
Yes.
It still seems painful to you.
There's like a list in my head. They're all like, I'll tell you the first mistake we made.
Yeah.
You want to hear?
Yeah.
So the Miami project, he wanted a budget. He wasn't giving us a budget. He wanted us to give him a budget. We gave him a range. Okay. A range of a budget that there was a gap of $500,000 in between that. So we didn't know what we were doing, clearly. So he was looking at the lower number, and we were obviously focused somewhere in the middle to higher. And it obviously went to the middle higher. And he was annoyed. He was like, hold on a second. Like, you gave me a range. How come we ended up here? Like, in my mind, I was here. And that was a very big mistake. And one thing I always do, with budgets and making sure that clients align with what I do, is figuring out your budget. And now, with all the experience of doing this over, so many years, I know what things cost. I have it all in my accounting, and we know how much things are, and we don't give a range. If anything, I'll always, pad things and let clients be pleasantly surprised if they're less. But now I've never made that mistake since. I could tell you that. Always your mistakes are always your best lessons, and you never make them again. So that was our first big mistake, having this firm.
It's so funny, isn't it? Make every mistake in the book, just don't make the same one twice.
Exactly. Yeah.
I tell my kids that all the time. Go ahead, experiment, make mistakes, but if you're making the same ones over and over again, there's an issue. That being said, it's interesting to me. How have you seen the industry change? So this is a two-part question, right? How have you seen the industry change since you started in the business in 2004, and how have you seen the business really change in the past 16 months?
Okay. Well, since 2004, social media, right? So my business back then was all word of mouth. Never, like, people really didn't know of me, but I've been doing this for so long, and it was all word of mouth. Now I have, definitely a larger audience and range of, people viewing me worldwide, due to Instagram and social media, which is, huge, such a change. So much more, just marketing and advertising for your company. And it's basically free. So that is, I would say, the biggest change. Something else that I could say is a change is, when I started out in this field, and my mentors and people that I work for, it was kind of that like old school mentality of design, and everything was like super secretive. No one really, I mean, you were like friendly with people, but it wasn't like real. And, you were competitors, right? Like that's how it was. Now I feel like there's such a camaraderie, and, my peers in this industry, there's so many amazing designers, and everybody wants to help everybody. And my mentality too is there's enough to go around for everyone. I don't look at people who are, up for the same projects as me. I'm not threatened by that. There is enough work for everybody to succeed. And I think there's something so nice about that, that, even on social media, that's how we all really connect. Like asking, oh, I love that, piece of furniture. Where'd you get that? And like everyone just, oh, it's from here, tell them I sent you, or, that kind of thing. And I also, because when I started out, it was so tough. I am very open to helping to mentor people, or people thinking of getting into the field, and, really helping others, right? Because I wish I had that. I wish I had that when I was starting out in this career. There's so many there, and there's some big designers now who started, way after I did. And I spoke to them. They were asking me advice, like, what do I need to do? What programs with this? And now they're like these really big, successful designers. It makes me so proud that they're succeeding and doing well. So I think that is definitely a big change as well. And then as far as the past year and a half or so, I mean, we kind of spoke about it. The biggest change is lead times and too much work, and we're all overworked. Things like that, not being able to travel to visit some sites that you're working on, some jobs. That was also slightly difficult. I was working on a project out in LA, and I was not getting on a plane to go to LA. So, doing things via Zoom, and, everything is just, FaceTime, but it goes to show again that you could make things work. And this is like the new now of how we're working.
So fascinating. The new now, absolutely true. And I want to drill down on that a little bit, because something that you had said earlier, that you relocated.
Yeah.
And so with that, one of the things that I have heard from just about everyone on the design side that I've spoken to is there's this new now, right? There's this new reality where designers are seeing some of their best clients move. They're moving from, LA, New York, Chicago, Miami to Memphis, Nashville, Austin, Kansas City. They're moving to other cities where, listen, you're not going to want to get on a plane and go visit Kansas City during the course of an 8-week, 12-week project, right?
Right.
So this idea, what we're doing today, I think, as anxious as I am and you are and all of us are to get back out and go back to reality and be there in person.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Are you going to just shut it in the drawer? Or are you going to?
Yes. No. Oh my gosh. I'm so sorry.
No, don't worry about it. I'm
Okay.
interested to know this idea of remote design.
Yeah.
Not virtual, remote, because it's real. You're just doing it from a different location.
Yes.
Has that affected the way that you approach technology with your biz, that you are working more with clients now on a remote basis? Is this something that you see as part of the future of your firm?
Well, I could tell you this. One of my favorite parts of my business before COVID was destination projects. I loved having destination projects for many reasons. I love traveling. I love going to different locations, different architecture, different types of people. I love traveling so much. So I used to get excited about that, like, oh, a destination project. There was something like, I don't know, like alluring to that. Where now, I get contacted for a lot of out of town projects as far as Egypt. Like recently I got contacted to do this amazing project in Egypt. And honestly, like I don't want to travel now. I'm just like, and I actually am working on a project in Miami, which I'm flying for the first time next weekend, which isn't so far from me being in New York, and I'm excited to go. But beyond that right now, no, I don't really want to do that. So, working virtually, if people are open to that, which a lot of people are, yeah, that is definitely, I think, going to be for the next still. I mean, I know COVID is calming down a bit and numbers have gone down, but it's not gone. And I think this is going to be, another couple of years that things are going to be like this. That's like the reality, in my opinion. So yeah. And the other thing too, there's like all these companies that recently started their apps that you could do one-on-one calls with designers. And I, was one of the first designers and people to like be on a couple of these apps. One of them in particular is called Intro. And I speak to people all over the place. And, you could book out 15 minutes, you could book out an hour on these calls, and it's amazing. And it's amazing to see, when people are like, you helped me so much. Oh my gosh, this was so helpful. I couldn't make a decision on this or that, or thank you for the vendors and, things like that, to be able to help somebody even in like a short period of time. And I've helped people in the Carolinas, LA, and Florida, all of Chicago, all over the place. I'm talking to people, helping them. It's incredible, and it can be done. So yes, I am definitely, loving this kind of online interactive client, and project like meetings this way. And I think it works.
As far as the work itself, what are you being asked for now that maybe you weren't being asked for 12 months ago? What about the work is changing?
So one thing, as far as like a project, there's a lot of like from the ground up, like more so than, renovations, which I normally specialize in anyway. But there's definitely a lot more of it, like people building from the ground up. I've seen a lot more of that. I've been seeing a lot of people who have been, like so many others, living in a home, and they've been wanting to redesign it. And there's just like an abundance of it where they're like, I'm done. I can't look at my house anymore, and I need to redo, and the whole thing, I'm doing it because I can't look at it anymore. And then another thing that I think is such a trend since COVID is a home bar. Like that is by far across the board something that I think every single person, because you can't really go, like people weren't going out and socializing. So they had their little pods of people that they were hanging out with, and everybody wanted a home bar. So that's like, and including myself, I actually have a home bar, which has been incredible. Not that I'm even a big drinker. My husband's more of a drinker than me because he's English, but, it's just like a great, I think, space to have in your home to, and I think moving forward too, which reminds me of kind of like a throwback, because I feel like that's what people used to do probably like more so in like the 50s and the 60s, right? Like everyone had the home bars back then, because people didn't have all these amazing like restaurants and, you know, hotels to hang out in, and, you know, all these different things. That's what people did. They would entertain in their homes. They would have a bar. And I love that. I love that that is something that has definitely made a huge comeback.
So amazing that you say that, because I was waiting for home gym, home office, home school, but home bar. I love that. Here's why I find that so interesting, because I have often said that I consider designers and architects to be futurists. And I believe that. I believe that architects are designing for 75, 100, 150 years. Designers are designing for 10, 15, 20 years, really. And what's interesting to me is if you look back at some of the trends in design over the past 15 or 20 years, what have you seen? You've seen the idea of the built-in bar go away.
Mm-hmm.
The formal living go away, the den go away, the formal dining go away in favor of a wide open space. Mm-hmm. So the open plan, where let's just take every available wall down and let's just open it up as much as possible. And what's happened is over the past 16, 14 months, people have realized, boy, I could really use a couple of walls right now.
Yes, because everyone needs space now, like privately, right?
Yeah,
I know.
And I believe that there is a happy medium to this, where, to your point, you know, some of these ideas that are coming back now. I love that idea about a bar, because I think you're right. I think having that social entertaining area revolving around that is really important. I think some of the other things that I'm seeing now, which I think is fascinating, is this idea that in the states where cannabis has been legalized recreationally, you're getting this idea of what used to be, you know, 15, 20 years ago was a cigar room when cigars had their moment.
Yeah.
You're starting to have this cannabis room again, where, you know, people still want to smoke, but they don't want the smoke to carry over into the room. And so with that comes a lot of design elements and a lot of really unique things. But it's fascinating. It feels like the ideas that revolve around design are beginning to change. And I'm curious if you feel that way too.
I definitely feel that way. 100%. Yeah. Another area, space, by the way, that also has changed, which kind of also relates to all this, is outdoor spaces and indoor outdoor spaces that you could use all year round. Which, you know, I think that now that people are seeing this, like the bar and all these like entertaining areas that like keep people entertained in their homes, right? And like a special place to go to, that's definitely part of it for sure, especially in New York, because you're in Southern California, but in New York, you know, it's not warm 12 months out of the year. You have to kind of figure out, like, you know, we have heaters. I sat out with my neighbors and friends sitting outside with heaters and comfortable furniture, and, you know, in cold months during the year. And so many people doing these, you know, all season rooms where the walls can open up and go down. You have heaters in there. You have a fireplace in these rooms, but it's indoor, outdoor. And then summer, it's all kind of open. So yes, it's definitely more, you know, unique, thought out spaces for sure.
I think that probably nails it. More unique, well thought out spaces. And if I could add one key indicator of what makes a designer so special, it's the idea of being well thought out.
Yes.
Right? That it's not just, hey, let's make this room pretty. Because I think many people, you know, go to Pinterest, go to Instagram, look at someone's work, and then go, you know, riff on it and make something pretty. But that doesn't necessarily mean you've got space, color, scale, structure, you know, that you've got all of those things, the livability of it, the durability of the materials, the lifespan of it. And with that, I wanted to use this opportunity to showcase some of your work. And this is, I'll be frank with you and tell you that this is really one of my favorite parts of this. Can you see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, so you can see your work now?
Yep.
Okay, very cool. So one of my favorite part of the showroom is, and I love having the conversation in advance, but then to look at your work and to be able to sort of dive deep into it and talk about why you make certain choices. And for those of you who are hearing this on the podcast, if you go into and we'll publish this, if you go to the show notes, there'll be a link there to click on the images, so you can follow along and see what we're looking at. So starting with this, which project are we looking at right now?
So this was a show house that I did out in the Hamptons for breast cancer.
And one of the things when I was looking at this, there were a couple of things that I noticed, and I love exploring space with designers, because when I started the podcast, I asked this question that I go back now, it's a little cringy for me, but I would ask designers, so do you have a signature style? What's your favorite style? And it was just like, it's not a stupid question. It's just a pedestrian question, right? It's like, ugh. And what I've learned over time is that it's not that you have the good designers, the great designers. It's not that you have a signature style. It's that you have a footprint or a fingerprint that will be left behind in the work. And so when I look at this, some of the things that I see between the colors and the shape and the scale and the spacing, we get to look at and we get to see in different contexts. And as I look at this room and what you did with it, first of all, I love the way you play and experiment with shapes, specifically in the rug, in the bed, in the wall coverings. It's just so special. So as you go through, do you remember sort of what you were thinking and who you designed the space for?
Yeah, so it kind of, I wanted it, first of all, I chose the color pink for breast cancer. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do something with pink. I am very drawn to that color. And it's so funny because I'm so not a girly girl. But I'm so drawn, to images and furniture and fabric, like with pink. I don't know why. It's just something, and it's been for a while. I don't know if it's something that will pass, but I don't know. So that was the idea behind that. And yes, I love kind of breaking open ideas and, kind of breaking out of the box, so to say. And, when people are like, well, things have to be done like this and it has to be this and this has, I always am the one who fights against it. I'm like, absolutely not. There's no, I want to do things differently. I try to push myself. Like, how can I do something different? Not just to be different, but like really exploring pieces, furniture, shape.
Pink stuff.
That's what you saw. So pink and
but shape, sizes.
Hi everyone, whomever, can everybody please mute your line?
Anyway.
So anyway, yeah, I just, I wanted it to feel kind of feminine. I am very drawn to
200 square feet. Is that a lot?
No.
Exactly.
Sorry. Hello.
When are you cleaning this?
I have to.
Okay. Okay. I think we're good now, right? Just a reminder, if everyone can make sure that your phones are, or your sound is muted, that'd be greatly appreciated. Thank you. Okay. I see. It's great because now I know I've got a couple edits to make in the podcast. So we'll make that work. Okay. Back to it. Okay. Can you see this again?
Yes. Back
okay.
on.
So let's see, let's get to where we were before. And here's the, wait a minute, I think I got past it. One more. There we go. Okay.
Here we go.
So here's the thing that I absolutely love about this. The shapes, both organic and inorganic, both soft and curvy. And as you look at the wallpaper and the chandelier, the sharp and the jagged, it's just this, as well as the pattern itself in the wall coverings. It's just everything was blended, but nothing seems out of place. When you were looking specifically as it relates to color and shape and structure, what were you thinking about, and how did you, the color, totally get it. Who did you design this for, and what were you thinking through the process?
So really, also, this is something that I do when I'm designing. I always want to create an experience. When you walk into a space, I want to evoke a feeling. That's definitely like a huge thing for me. And it's so funny. So this room, like, we had to name it, and it was like a dream. That was my room. And there's a mirror, this etched mirror that says "Dream of Me." And, you know, being in that room and watching people come in, like, everyone was like, I feel like I'm in a dream. And they didn't know that was the name of the room, but they're like, I feel like I'm in a dream. I'm in a cloud. I'm floating. I've never, felt like this before in a room. I feel like I'm being like cradled and like held in this room. Everyone had the same kind of feeling and experience in here. The other thing for me too is I'm very into materials. I love combining texture and just all different kinds of materials together. And I always say this, that, in all of my rooms or, designs, I call it eye candy, and I don't think that, like, you're doing a room and you should just throw in this and that. Like, everything is definitely very thought out, like every little piece, down to a book that I'll put on a table, like everything kind of has to have something interesting about it. And whether it's a shape or a color or a texture, I want everything to like every single piece that I put into a room should have that. And it doesn't mean that it has to be the most expensive object or material, but it's just, and I do tend to gravitate towards things that have, unusual shapes or some kind of shape to it, and I'm kind of known for, everyone's like, oh my gosh, you love balls and round shapes and circles. And it's so funny. Yeah. It's like, I do. And in my own home, I didn't even realize that I was doing it, but everyone's like, wow, you really like balls. And I'm like, I guess I do, because there's round shapes everywhere, or actual like cylinders and circles. And I am drawn to it. And maybe it is like a little influence from, like the 70s and 80s, but I wouldn't consider this kind of like vintage looking, because I kind of went through my whole vintage phase through my career. I don't know. I'm drawn to different shapes and trying to be creative, in my designs, and, just do my thing. It just like comes out. I don't know.
Well, and with that, that rug is absolutely spectacular. And it's funny because sometimes when you look at work, you look at this design, I can't imagine any other rug but that one being in that room.
Yeah. And it's amazing. I mean, not only is the shape, but it's shearling. It was a shearling rug. So like, yeah, everyone was like getting on the floor and petting it or taking their shoes off and walking on it, because it was just so luxurious and soft. And, it was one of my favorite rugs that I've ever designed. But it was so fun creating that space.
So jumping to this one, where is this kitchen?
So this is in New Jersey. This is actually a pool house that I did for a summer home for a client.
And just looking at this again, the shapes,
Yes.
both the ones that your eye is leaning towards for the focus, as well as the ones, just the simple things like lucite back chairs so that you can see the cushions and the cushions match the glass. Your attention to detail is absolutely amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
In addition to that, there are a couple other things that I noticed you've done between with the white cabinetry and this floating countertop. The fact that you're mixing metals so efficiently. Who did you design this for? And this is a pool house, so it was it. I don't want to know if it was matchy to the main house, but was there a theme drawn out?
So yeah, I mean, basically the main house, it does kind of carry over into the pool house. It was all, black and white with these like amazing pops of color, and green was one of the colors throughout the house that the client loved. And just against the black and white, it was like, it just popped and it looks so beautiful. And this is for a family that really entertains a lot. This is their summer home. They have a beautiful pool in their backyard and gorgeous outdoor furniture. And they really wanted a space where they could entertain. They could, eat here with friends and family. And yeah, this is, I would say, the most used space, in their summer home for sure. So we wanted to create something kind of like bright and happy and cool and poppy. And again, that eye candy, where we did these beautiful cement floors and we laid out these tiles to be in this like irregular kind of pattern. We did these rope. There were 3 of them. You can't see the third, but there's actually 3 of these large cylinder rope wrapped lights from Cuff Studio. They're actually in LA. And with the chairs, with the green, kind of popping through and just kind of having, I like contrast, even we did the countertop, how do we do something different? How do we do something cool? I want to make this, different. So we kind of cut the ends off of being black and we added the white on there. Just playing with stuff, color blocking. It really it makes a space a little more interesting.
Yeah, and it's whimsical. And the other thing that I noticed when looking at this really is just how incredibly efficient your design is. I mean, as you look at this space, there is not an inch of wasted space, and there's design everywhere. It's amazing. And it's funny too, because then going to this one, there's the ball pillows again. There are the round pillows. But what I wanted to point out in this one is it's really interesting because the color is very subdued. It's very muted, but you don't lose any of the impact with your use of neutrals.
Yeah. Well, again, it's, definitely with texture. And I actually, I think known for like so many pops of color and contrast like that, but I love neutral patterns. And I think if you do them in a textural layered way, they are just as impactful as those, pops of color and things like that. Yeah.
Do you think that it's almost more challenging to design with neutrals than it is with color?
No, I don't think so. In my opinion, because I feel like there's so many things that you could use in a space, even in neutrals, like furniture pieces. And there's so many beautiful fabrics and textures and materials that you kind of layer them on, so I personally don't.
And then with this, getting into some of the bathrooms and the kitchens, the one on our left.
Yes.
Wow. Tell me about your relationship with your fabricator, because I know that this one had a lot of discussion involved.
Yes. I have a very close relationship with my fabricator. You hit it on the nail. And every stone yard, basically, because my favorite material to work with is definitely marble and stone. But yeah, I was also fortunate enough to have a client who had amazing taste herself. She definitely was more daring than, most. And she, I collaborate with all of my clients so much. And I think that's part of what makes my job so fun. And this was, she had pulled some inspiration and brought it to me. And we kind of created this, this bathroom together, that vanity and kind of, the metalwork and all of that. So it was definitely, I can't take full credit at all, because my clients are, and they're also the ones pulling the trigger saying, yes, do it. Right. It's like, I'm bringing them ideas, but a lot of people are like, no, I don't know, or I'll get sick of that, or that shape reminds me of this. She was one of those like, yes, let's do this. So, I definitely have her to thank as well.
And then the design on the right. So here's what's interesting is when you're using a wallpaper like that, it has this almost marble-like quality that you're using a completely different material to get a similar effect.
Yes. So I'm like a huge fan of old techniques of, people doing marbleizing. I love kind of like drips of paint and the use of paint. When I was younger, I was more of a fine artist than a designer, for sure. And maybe it comes into play with that. Seeing different forms and shapes and, fluid lines. So yeah, again, this is the same project, and the client, most people would be like, that's too busy. I'll get sick of that. But it just, people don't realize that sometimes patterns and things like this, like, you don't get sick of it. It's actually like, it's fun. It makes you happy being around, something different that you don't see all the time. And like, when you see it all over your walls, it turns out not being as busy as you think it would be.
Yeah, exactly. And then the center image, couple of observations. First of all, like you were talking about, your use of a, quote unquote drips of color here on something like this is exquisite. It's amazing. Something else that kind of pops out in my mind is really, subway tile has taken an absolute beating over the last, what do you want to call it, 5 to 7 years, where people, oh gosh, not another subway tile. You know what I mean? And I know you've heard this too, but I think that it's never the product, it's the use and it's the application. And, here where you're going entire wall with subway tile, it's just, and then adding the color in the middle, and then having the window to the side and that black and white offset. I love this. And I think it just demonstrates how to use the product so well, going floor to ceiling with subway tile. Tell me about this. Tell me about the conversation with the owner, with the client, and sort of your thought behind this.
The thought behind this is, well, one thing I have to say first and foremost is subway tiles, it's been used so much, but there are some things that, are just classic, right? Like subway
Yeah.
tile is something that's classic that has been around forever. And it's been around forever because of a reason. It works. It works in every space. And I agree with you. It is how you use it. I think even using subway tiles in different patterns on the wall that aren't, typical could be fun, and the use of them. But this is a kitchen in the same house. And again, the client was just super cool, and she really, it was very collaborative, and we just, it has a look to it. And I don't want to say it because it doesn't look like a restaurant, but it's something that I guess you would not typically see in someone's kitchen, It's
Yeah. And then I'm trying to figure out, so does it go to the ceiling, or
Yes.
is that so you've got it on the ceiling as well?
Yes.
Wow. So is that, and then what do you do with the other 3 walls?
They were all tiled. All the walls were tiled, minus the cabinetry. That was
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I love that. I really do. And then look, circles again. See what's interesting. What's interesting about this is now I'm going to notice, since you said that, I'm going to notice every circle. But what it's also, had you not said that, what it would have been kind of like, oh, there's a through line. But again, your use of strategic pops of color, and that's one of the things that I really wanted to point out about this particular image, is all of the textures and the height and the spacing. This is not a large space at all. No. Yet the manner in which you've used it, there is an elegant efficiency to this that I just absolutely love. Is this a New York project?
Yes, this was actually in Brooklyn, in Williamsburg.
Okay. I love that. And again, I don't know if this is the same project, but again, with this rug, gosh, I love that rug.
Thank you. Yeah, this is a different project. That was a townhouse in the West Village that we kind of revamped this whole entryway. It was 5 levels going up, and we put in this really high gloss white paneling going up the entire house because it felt a little dark up the hallways, and we wanted to brighten it up, and we put lights in the along the side of the stairs going up. And again, such a awesome, cool client that we created this custom kind of swirly design. And I don't know, I'm into this. This rug was actually done before the show house rug, of this idea of a puddle, of it like kind of spilling out, super fluid, and just playful, just fun, unexpected. Playful.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm into it too. I think it's absolutely amazing. Last image that we have for this, and I just wanted to showcase again, just some of the work that you're doing. And when I first saw this one, I had said to you, I was like, are those wood floors? And they are. Tell me the story behind painting these wood floors.
So this is the same New Jersey summer house. So it was an old Victorian house that, I wish I actually had some before photos of this, because it really is such a transformation. So why we wanted to do this to the floors, they didn't want to replace the floors, but they were really, really thin. They weren't even 3 inches wide. They were maybe like 2 inches, maybe 2 inches, really, really thin, original to the house. Believe it or not, they were all level, which was amazing. And we wanted to do a different play on this. And I was telling you earlier, but I lived in London for a couple of years with my husband, and in the flat that we lived in when we were there, I was definitely inspired for this project. We had these old, beautiful pine wood floors in our flat that were painted. And over time, they kind of like got a little scuffed up, but that was part of the beauty of it. Like just, something so old, but, updated in this way, and just thought it was so cool. So I was like, why don't we paint them, do like a super hard, like exterior kind of paint on this floor, and we could do whatever pattern we want. And just, and it's so funny. Everyone that sees this, they're like, I love the marble floor. Everyone thinks it's marble. And I'm like, no, we like laid out this pattern, and we did these kind of like pinstripes around the other rooms that were solid white. But for the entry, we did this black and white checkerboard. And I mean, this completely brightened up this house, gave it such new life. And I think, people don't realize like it, not that it's such a little thing to paint a floor, because it is still an ordeal, sanding it down and layers of paint and laying it out, but not having to rip up a floor and kind of like take a different take on a space. That was, the idea for there.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And one of the things it's too, when you're talking about use of materials and sort of creative use, you and I were talking beforehand. You were mentioning that we were talking about Walker Zanger. Teresa, you're going to love this. We were talking about Walker Zanger, and you had mentioned that there was a product that you've seen, or one of the lines that you wanted to work with. Do you remember the name of that?
I do. So it's actually glass, believe it or not, but it looks like stone. And when you feel it, it like, because it's kind of like, I don't know, it's like a sandblasted like finish or something, but it's Bianco Vetro. And they do, this is part of the roundness. They have a penny tile, but it's not a flat penny tile, it's rounded. It has this kind of like rounded feeling to it. And I was recently in the showroom, and I was like, this is the coolest thing. Look at this stone. And they're like, that's not stone. I was like, there's not many like faux looking stones that could fool my eye. I was like completely full. This looked like stone to me, like to a T. I was like, no way, it's definitely not. I'm like, you're making a mistake, to the salesperson. And they're like, no, this is glass. Like, this is our, our studio glass line. And I like turned around, I'm like, oh my God, so cool. Such a cool product, and have the sample in my library. So yeah.
Cara, thank you for your skill, talent, and willingness to share. It was my honor speaking with you, and congratulations. Thank you to my partners and sponsors, Thermosol and Design Hardware, for making the show possible. Thank you for taking the time to listen to the show, and thank you for providing all the feedback that you send. Convo by Design at outlook.com is the email address to send show suggestions, show ideas, guest suggestions, and Convo by at Convo by Design with an X on Instagram. Follow along and enjoy the fun if you are so inclined. So thanks for listening, and until next week, be well and take today first.